Good morning, everyone. Oh, that's very polite of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ICRI 2024. My name is Chris Krishna Pillay. It is my pleasure, honour and delight to be your Master of Ceremonies over the next few days. And it is great to have you all here with us. It's particularly great to have so many very important and I would suggest intelligent people in the room. However, that comes with a caveat. In the extremely unlikely event of an emergency, if we need to evacuate the building, you don't want to be the one person that gets it wrong. So listen carefully when I explain this to you because it's really simple. If you look around the room, here, and all the way across there are little green signs that get you out of the building. The exception, of course, if you happen to see a rope across the doorway, don't use that one. Just in case, it's like nightclubs that you grew up with. The rope means no, but the green means yes. It's okay, you're much more popular now than you were then, you'll be able to go through. So you'll know there'll be alarms, it's not a secret, it takes you directly outside. If in doubt, ask the staff. The staff here, it's a massive part of their job is to take care of us. So it'll be fine, but that's where they are. Like I said, it's great to have everyone gathered here, but of course, we are not the first people to gather here in this place. People have been gathering and indeed living here for literally thousands of generations. We are on the traditional lands of the Turrbal, Yagara and Jagara people. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and indeed any First Nations people who are joining us here today and throughout the conference. It is my pleasure that we have with us Tim and John from Tribal Experiences. Will you please show your appreciation?
Yira nabli ganare banjara, ninda bayambi near burially, ninda mianjin. That's just how we say good morning in our language. So how are we, guys? Come on, we can do better than that, eh? How are we, guys? We good? Well, I'm Tim, this is John, we're from Tribal Experiences. We're here to give you a welcome to country. A welcome to country is not something that was happened overnight by a group of elders sitting by a fire or event organisations or two good-looking blokes like ourselves trying to get TikTok famous. We're here to give you a welcome to country, to welcome you on the land that we gather upon today, which is the Yagara, Jagara and Turrbal people. We're going to welcome the country. If we had neighbouring tribes wanting to come into our country, they would come in and they'll bring a little stick, which had markings and carvings on it to depict why they're coming into our country. If they didn't have this message stick, the elders and all the warriors would come down and spear them on the spot. Thank God they made mobile phones these days, so we can just ring up. We're going to welcome you here today with a welcoming song which we call Malacha, to welcome you, the good ancestors and good spirit, to make sure you have a safe and peaceful journey on our country and go back to your loved ones peacefully. This song here, Malacha, the welcoming song. Yo nani agara nuru, yo nani agara Malacha, yo hey. Danare agara Malacha, na Malacha agara danare, ha miajina malaranga nuru, miajina malaranga nuru. Danare yogara malacha yogare dandare oh danare yogara malacha na malacha yogare dandare ha miajana malaranga noro danare yogara malacha yogare dandare oh danare yogara malacha na malacha yogare dandare ha miajana malaranga noro yo. Welcome. On behalf of Tribal Experience and the Yagara, Turrbal and Jagara people, we'd like to say Nanya Numbly, thank you very much, and we hope you have a safe day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ICRI is brought to you by a partnership of CSIRO, Australia's National Research Agency, the Australian Department of Education and the European Commission. Now, collectively, these groups recognise the value and the power of a cohesive, collaborative, global research infrastructure approach, but of course they come from different perspectives and have different roles to play in different contexts. So the opportunity is here with us now to get a sense of, from each of them, what that looks like and their commitment to this ongoing pursuit. First, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Doug Hilton, the Chief Executive of CSIRO. CSIRO is by one of the world's most diverse multidisciplinary research organisations, and Dr. Hilton comes to it with a background and a very successful career in molecular and cellular biology. His medical research focused on understanding how blood cells communicate and using that knowledge to improve disease treatments. Will you please put your hands together and welcome to the stage Dr. Doug Hilton.
Thank you so much. Tony and I have done a little shuffle, so I am going to acknowledge the traditional owners and Tony is going to acknowledge the distinguished guests, so we'll split the formalities. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Turrbal, the Yuggera and the Juggera people as the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. There's probably a lot of international guests. The reason we do this is the land that we're on has never been ceded, and the traditional owners here have built the longest, and I would argue the richest continuous culture in the world, 65,000 years. And you don't do that without asking profound questions of the universe around you, and then seeking answers to those questions through observing the natural world, the relationships between animals, plants, place, time, earth, sky, without innovating and inventing and communicating those answers in ways that transcend generations, and without acting on those answers for future generations. And when we think about science communication, we get very carried away, at least you do as a scientist, and until last year I was a practicing scientist, you get very carried away with publishing research papers that might be read, you know, for maybe a couple of years, maybe they're cited for 5 or 6 years, and we think that is impact. When we think about communicating ideas that have been, and answers that have been derived by observing the universe, by doing science and communicating them over tens of thousands of years, I think that tells us something about how to communicate ideas. I'd also like to welcome everybody to the conference. To me, science is just a wonderful endeavour, perhaps the most global of endeavours, and for science to progress, and I've certainly felt that as a practicing scientist, requires people from all over the world to contribute. If you think about the big breakthroughs over the last century, they're all global endeavours. Understanding the quantum world, exploring the solar system, the Human Genome Project, responding to pandemics. Major breakthroughs in the way we understand, respond to and shape the universe don't just require those people to work together, they're dependent on providing access to cutting infrastructure, but then also having the technologists that allow that infrastructure to be used optimally by the whole research community. And that the infrastructure are the things that you're all involved with: particle accelerators, telescopes, DNA sequencers, biocontainment facilities. And in the face of global tensions and tightening economic times, planning and building and maintaining and running research infrastructure is a huge challenge, and I think it's one that you are all acutely aware of. And that's why this meeting is so very timely. Like many organisations that you represent, CSIRO, Australia's National Science Agency, has a major role not just in doing research, but an additional responsibility to run research infrastructure for Australia, for the nation, and for the world. We play a key role in telescopes such as the International SKA Low facility that tracks and in facilities that track many of the world's iconic space exploration missions. We run Australia's major marine research vessel, the Investigator, and we operate the only level 4 containment facility in the Southern Hemisphere for large animals. And just as doing research well requires collaboration, so does managing research infrastructure. And as well as being Australia's National Science Agency, we're really looking to develop further our reputation as Australia's trusted partner and collaborator, both on major research programs and major national infrastructure projects. For example, we've worked intimately over decades with NASA and the Jet Propulsion Lab in a wonderful collaboration that tracks those space missions. We're very proud to have worked with the European Space Agency and the SKA Observatory intergovernmental organisations, as well as the Australian Department of Industry, Science and Resources on the SKA project. That collaboration is crucial to research infrastructure, is why this conference, the International Conference on Research Infrastructure, is so important. and why CSIRO is so proud to be co-hosting this event with the Australian Department of Education and the European Commission. We're also delighted that this meeting for the first time is being held in the Asia-Pacific region. It allows so many representatives from Asia and Oceania to join us today. Their voices and expertise are important to solving the challenges that confront all of us. I have really only one ask of all of you, and that's to take the opportunity to consider how we can all work better together within countries, within regions, and across the world, and then having thought about that, do something tangible to make it happen. Our communities, the ones who fund much of the research that we do and fund much of the infrastructure we manage, expect nothing less of us that we engage generously to deliver the best possible outcomes from their investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. As Doug mentioned, Tony Cook is with us from the Department of Education. He's the Secretary of the Australian Department of Education. He's also a primary school teacher, a registered primary school teacher, and has held senior executive positions in the Victorian Public Service. He is a recipient of the Public Service Medal. Will you please welcome Tony Cook?
Thanks very much. And can I associate Doug's remarks and the acknowledgement of country? Can I also acknowledge any First Nations people who are joining us here today? So welcome to this wonderful conference. Can I acknowledge particularly the conference organisers and the conference committee to make this event happen? It is not easy. It is certainly not easy when you come from all over the world. So I'm going to embarrass a few people if that's okay. Anna, can I ask you to stand up? Are you there? Is Anna here? That's embarrassing. Anna's not here. Anna, who's from the European Commission, the Director for European Research Area, part of the Chair of ICRI. Is Michael Antoff here? There's Michael. Hey, Michael. The Head of Unit for Open Science and Research Infrastructure. And I know Alex is here, Dr. Alex Cook, the CSIRO Director of Enterprise Services. So they're the team that have helped put this together. There's a number of members as well. Can you just put your hand up or embarrass yourself or out yourself, members of the organising committee? Thank you very much for all the work you've done. And then you'll see a lot of Doug's staff and my staff, probably in orange t-shirts around, who have also helped us organise this event over the next couple of days. So thank you very much to all of those staff for everything you've done. So welcome to Brisbane, welcome to my home state of Queensland. I don't live here anymore, but I used to live here. I was born here, about 3 hours west of Brisbane. For the European and the people who have come from all around the world, we've made this couple of days a bit cooler for you. To make life a bit easier for you. We've reduced the humidity just so you're not feeling too uncomfortable. Was anyone here on Sunday? Yeah, that's called a summer shower in Brisbane. So that wasn't much rain for us. But I don't think there's going to be much rain over the next couple of days. But welcome to Brisbane. If you do get a chance, it's a wonderful city. It's a great environment. Do get to explore it. Lots of fantastic things here. Very multicultural. Lots of wonderful restaurants and food. So please enjoy your time in Brisbane, as well as the work that you'll be doing and the networking that you'll be doing over the next couple of days. It's really great to have you here. It's really great to have this amazing lineup. 90 experts or so sharing your knowledge, sharing your expertise, sharing what you're doing around research infrastructure and the important work that happens, not just about the equipment and the work that you have to do in relation to that equipment, maintaining that equipment, but also the research that you do and the work that you do in connecting researchers. It is really, really important, which is why I guess from my perspective in terms of my department and the work that we do for the Australian government, it's so important to enable us to provide the funding that we provide to enable the infrastructure, the research infrastructure and the collaboration in terms of that research infrastructure to enable that to happen in Australia. Australia's pretty proud of our research effort. There's always questions about funding, of course. I won't go into that this morning. We could be here all morning. But we are really proud of our research effort. We produce, on average, about 3% of all global research output in the world, but we're only 0.3% of the world's population. And so we really kick above our weight, our goal, whatever the word I'm after there, in terms of the work that we do. And thank you to all the researchers, the Australian researchers, but also your international partners in that work. It is very important to the work that we do. It's also very important to, obviously, the Australian productivity and economy, let alone the social fabric of Australia and the work that we do across the multiple disciplines that we work on here in the research fraternity in Australia. In the Australian government, across the next couple of years, we're expecting to invest about $16.5 billion in research and development. As I mentioned, research for us is very important in terms of our economic growth and our productivity more broadly. And what is critical is, I guess, one of the projects that we work on and that we support and fund, and also in terms of Doug and CSIRO, the strong partnership we've had with them, which is the National Collaborative Research Infrastructure and Strategy, or NCRIS, as we call it. And NCRIS has been in the Australian research area for many years now. It's a very important part of our research, and it's literally about collaboration in research infrastructure, why you are here for the next couple of days. We've invested $4 billion over 12 years, from 2018 to 2029 in NCRIS, to maintain and grow this cutting-edge research and the infrastructure that's associated with it. And it's been extremely successful in the work that we do, in supporting research, but also supporting researchers. In 22-23 alone, NCRIS supported 100,000 researchers. 90,000 of those were Australian, and resulted in about 40,000 research publications referencing NCRIS facilities. So that in itself is an amazing acknowledgement of the importance of NCRIS and everything that it does. It includes things like supercomputers, microscopes, observatories, heavy ion accelerators, which I didn't know what they were till I went and looked at one, and they're really expensive. Databases, plus all the experts required to run these pieces of infrastructure and maintain the world-class facilities and services. It's co-funded by governments, by universities and by industry to ensure that Australia can adapt to rapid technological shifts and it's known for internationally renowned and recognised research. For example, the Integrated Marine Observing System, known as IMOS, a national system for collecting data in oceans across Australia and around Australia, is publicly available online and feeds into the global Argo array. Another example, which I visited just about 4 or 5 weeks ago with the Australian and the Indian education ministers, when the Indian education minister was here, was we went and saw the Australian National Fabrication Facility in Melbourne at Monash. An open access micro and nano fabrication equipment and expertise, and the work that they were doing, which in itself was also quite amazing. Pain-free diabetes tests, quantum technology, manufacturing and sensors for driverless cars are all work that they are doing in that facility. And you'll hear more about NCRIS and some of the incredible research and facility and researchers in later sessions throughout this conference. And so can I just say thank you to the organisers again? Can I say, Doug, thank you to CSIRO for the close partnership that we have, not just in this space, but also other work that we're doing, such as the Trailblazer Universities program in Australia. Can I welcome you? I'm delighted that you're all here. For those people that travelled a long way, I'm sorry. Now you know what we do all the time. We are a long way away here in Australia, but I really do appreciate all the time and effort that you've taken to be here in Brisbane. I really do hope you enjoy the next couple of days. It's really important that we get to learn from each other, talk to each other, experience the wonderful things that are going to happen in this conference, and welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Tony. The European Commission is today represented by Marc Lemaitre, who is actually unable to be here, but I'll tell you a bit about him first. He served as the Chief of Cabinet for the European Commissioner for Regional Policy. He was Director of the Office for Administration and Payment of Individual Entitlements, and later was the Director General for Regional and Urban Policy. He's currently the Director General for Research and Innovation. But like I said, he can't join us today, but he did prepare a message for us, which we'll play for you now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great pleasure for me to welcome you to the International Conference on Research Infrastructures. ICRI 2024 is already the 7th edition of this major meetup point for global research infrastructure collaboration. It builds on the momentum created in Copenhagen in 2012 and subsequently in Athens, Cape Town, Vienna, Ottawa, and Brno 2 years ago. I want to congratulate our Australian hosts for their efforts in putting together what I'm sure will be a great conference and for showing that geographical distance and time differences are not an obstacle to excellent collaboration. At the European Commission, we consider research infrastructures as strategic assets for tackling societal challenges and for reinforcing competitiveness. They enable innovation in, for instance, advanced materials, biotechnology, electronics, and a range of products and services, from health through food to energy. We also believe that research infrastructures have a key role as hubs for global scientific collaboration. They provide the capacities to channel international collaborations on shared priorities and make important contributions to addressing global challenges. This conviction is the driver for ICRI, which aims at creating opportunities for enlarging existing collaborations and discussing opportunities for new ones. Research infrastructures are as old as the first human attempts at systematizing knowledge. One could think of the Library of Alexandria as an example of a research infrastructure of the past. Scientists or scholars working in groups in different languages, pooling their respective expertise, and open to external users. Research infrastructures are not a prerogative of modern times, but modern times have allowed research infrastructures to spread and blossom. The increasing cost of building scientific instruments and the need for specialized expertise have naturally led for the great scientific collaborations taking the shape of international collaborations. We saw it in the 90s with the Human Genome Project, in 2012 with the discovery of the Higgs boson, and more recently with the COVID data platform. The world's greatest scientific instruments in the field of physics, the great telescopes or particle accelerators, have evolved governance models that we have been able to apply to other types of collaborations in the field of life sciences or the environment. We have created opportunities for science to happen, for humans to push back the boundaries of knowledge, with all the tools that their ingenuity has so far created. We are now at a new juncture, where data is becoming an increasingly essential part of this infrastructure. The digitalization of societies goes hand in hand with the digitalization of research. However, while the growth in data collection provides an unprecedented opportunity for scientific inquiry, it is also creating challenges. For example, by 2028, the square kilometer array will generate over 2 petabytes of data per night of observation. We need to create efficient mechanisms to move and store such data in a findable, accessible, interoperable, and reproducible, i.e. fair, way. We also need to enable scientists to perform online and offline analysis of these data, and to ensure that these algorithms used for these processes can be trusted by the community. In doing so, we cannot ignore the externalities of progress, especially in terms of energy consumption. How can we collaborate to minimize the energy consumption of research infrastructures? This week, we will also discuss how to be inclusive in planning and implementing research infrastructure projects. We will listen to the processes designed in different parts of the world and to the success stories of individual projects. This is also linked to the broader concept of the social impact of science. Science does not happen in isolation. It thrives in cooperation and also needs social acceptance. These are no small issues. We will discuss them all at ICRI 2024. I want to thank you for your participation in ICRI and for sharing your expertise and your vision within the global research infrastructures community. Make the most of these days.
Thank you, Mark. We will, right? We will make the most of these days, won't we? Oh, that wasn't convincing. Okay. We'll check in a couple of days' time and see if we have. Now, before we do anything else, and we're about to do something slightly exciting, there are a few people who have arrived and have not been able to get a seat. But as I stand here from my vantage point, I can see that geometrically that is just not a problem we can worry about too much. But if I could ask you to shuffle in from the edge of the rows. If you can, if you've got a seat, and if you haven't, then don't sit on someone's lap unless you know them very well. It's one of the stranger forms of networking. But if you can shuffle in there, oh, look at that. Excellent. Now you've made new friends. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. Now, as you've heard, Australia is co-hosting a very exciting piece of research infrastructure currently under construction in Western Australia and South Africa. The goal of the SKAO is to harness big data to revolutionise our understanding of the cosmos and from the birth of the universe to the origin of life. The Square Kilometre Array Observatory, or SKAO, is an international endeavour 3 decades in the making. In fact, at the risk of showing even more of my age, I think I'm going to say about 12 years ago, I was coordinating a community engagement event, and there was a gentleman there who was heading up CSIRO's attempt to land this job. CSIRO wanted to have the Australian part of this, and he was leading up that effort. And during his presentation, he said that when the SKA is operational, there'll be more data going down the line than we have supercomputers that can handle. There's nothing in the world that can handle that rate of data. He said it almost proudly, and I remember going, isn't that a problem? And he said, oh yes, but we'll fix that. That was the response. That was Phil Diamond. And it is being responded to, it is being fixed, and the work that they are producing, the new technology, is utterly extraordinary. Headquartered in the UK, the SKAO is building what will be the world's largest network of radio telescopes, pioneering a new era in radio astronomy. The SKAO is only the second ever intergovernmental treaty organisation dedicated to astronomy, the first being the European Southern Observatory. The SKAO is unique in the scale of its international collaboration, involving 16 countries on 5 continents. In addition to industrial and technical and scientific impact, it is already bringing broader benefits through spin-off technologies and innovation, and education and employment opportunities for underrepresented groups. The observatory has sustainability at its core, and alongside its international partners is contributing to several of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals through limiting its environmental footprint, addressing social and gender equity, reserving and promoting the culture and heritage of Indigenous populations around its sites, just to name a few things. Australia is a founding member of the SKA Observatory and a host of its low-frequency telescope, the SKA LOW, which is currently under construction in Wajiri Yamaji country in Western Australia. Now, that all sounds very exciting, and it is, in fact, very exciting, but don't take it from me. Why do we not check in with the team who are actually doing this work? I believe we have Dr. George Heald, who is the head of science commissioning at the SKA LOW telescope, online, on site. George, can you hear me?
Hi, Chris. I can hear you.
Can you see me?
No, I can see a camera though.
That is just your very good fortune. Great to see you. Great to see you out there as well. I'm a bit disappointed we didn't get to see the sunrise today, because it is spectacular in that part of the world, but that's okay. We'll cope with that. Tell us a bit about where you are right now. I can see behind you there is an extraordinary forest of antennas, I think. Tell us about what they are and what's going on where you are.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. I'm happy to join you today from Wajiri Yamaji country, from Inyarimata Ilgari Bundara, the CSIRO Murchison Radio Astronomy Observatory, which is where we're building the SKLO site. So the Wajiri Yamaji are the traditional owners and native title holders of this area, and I'd like to acknowledge their continuing connection to the land, water, and sky, as well as their support for our building this radio telescope on their country. So what you can see around me, or at this location where I'm located right now, this location is called S9, which is the 9th cluster of antennas along the southern spiral arm of our 3 spiral arm radio telescope configuration. So what you can see around me are individual antennas that make up the array. They may not look very much like what you would expect a radio telescope to look like, but in fact they are radio antennas that operate at low radio frequencies, including the frequencies that you would receive with your car radio. So what we do with this system is we combine the signals from the individual antennas using computers, and using a technique that we call interferometry, we create essentially a virtual telescope that acts as if it's physically as large as the biggest separation between the antennas, which is 74 kilometers in this case.
So if my research is correct, you're about 3,500 k's from where we are here in Brisbane, which for those of you who are less familiar with Australia is about the distance from London to Cairo, or New York to Caracas, City to Mumbai, so it's a long way. But even if we were closer to you, George, you're about more than 600 kilometres from Perth. It's not a convenient location. Why there?
Right. So along with our twin observatory site in South Africa, this is really one of the best places in the world to do radio astronomy. So this site was actually established in 2009 by the CSIRO with support from the Australian and Western Australian governments and the Wajiri Yamaji, and in fact is already the host of 2 world-class radio telescopes, the CSIRO ASCAP radio telescope, as well as the Curtin University-led Murchison Wide Field Array. So these radio telescopes are already operational and doing great science. So radio telescopes like these really are looking for very sensitive signals. In fact, we're looking for really faint signs of objects really off at the other end of the universe. And so you can imagine that if we have local sources of interference, radio interference, that can really cause problems for what we're trying to do. And so this particular site is great for, well, many reasons, but 2 in particular. One of them is that there's a really low population density. So there's only about 100 people that live in this area. It's an area which is about as large as a small European country. So it's a very low population density, and it means that we avoid sources of interference like mobile phones, broadcast towers, and just electronic noise from electric appliances and things. So the other reason that this is a great site is because it is the subject of a legislatively protected radio quiet zone, which was created by the Australian and Western Australian governments and protects this area from radio interference. Now, more broadly, the SK Observatory and Australia are working together with the international community to protect dark and quiet skies. And so we're working together with international bodies in order to protect the future of ground-based astronomy.
George, you mentioned that that you're building the telescope on the lands of the Wajiri Yamaji people, and just by looking at where you are now, we can see that it's a big change to the area. Can you tell us about how the Wajiri Yamaji are partnering with you and with the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Wajiri Yamaji negotiated for 7 years with the Australian government and with CSIRO to create an Indigenous land use agreement, which protects the cultural and the cultural heritage of the site. So that includes, for example, heritage monitors. So during the pre-construction phase of the project, the Wajiri Yamaji worked together with CSIRO to survey the observatory site and to keep an eye out for areas of particular cultural significance. The Wajiri Yamaji then worked together with SKA to assess the radio telescope design and look for ways to modify the design to avoid disruption of areas of cultural significance. And now during the construction phase, the heritage monitors are working along with the construction team looking out for any activities that involve ground disruption, again, to make sure that areas and objects of cultural significance are protected. Yes, the spirit of the Indigenous Land Use Agreement is, in fact, to work together and to provide opportunities across generations for the Wadjuri Yamaji in areas like contracts and employment, training, education, and as well to share culture and heritage. So one of the ways that that's happened is that SKA and CSIRO worked together with the Wadjuri Yamaji to create field technician roles. And in fact, the first group of field technicians, about 70% of them were Wadjuri Yamaji people. And actually, as it happens, the field technician team is here at S9 today working on site.
I'll ask you if you were alone out there. It seemed unsafe. I'm happy to hear that. Can we say hi to anyone else? Is there other people? Oh, yes, there is. Hi there. Who have we got?
Absolutely. So let me introduce you to Emily Goddard and Karen Faulkner, who are field technicians. And their job is to install antennas and all the associated technical equipment, as well as to look after maintenance of the telescope hardware.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us. Emily, tell us a bit about working on the construction. And look, we're all friends here. Is it going well?
Good morning. Yeah, no, it is going really well. So I started with SKA Low back in December last year, and I have been lucky enough to actually be coming out to site each week since then. And watching the site change and develop over that time has been incredible. The whole project started, as we know, back in December 2022 with, as George said, surveying and those kind of things. And first ground was broken in September 2023. Since then, the teams out here have laid thousands of kilometres of power and fibre optic cables. Fibre optic required to send everything that the telescope collects back to our processing facilities, both on and off site. And at the moment, we also have a team who's working in our core. So the core is an area of about 800 metres in diameter. That will be home to 300 odd stations. So that's a big area that they're currently working on. So it's a great project to work with because it does involve a lot of components and a lot of different parts. So we, as you can see, the antennas behind me, they come from Italy. Our smart boxes, which power the antennas, come from Australia. And then on the software side, we do have a lot of components that come from all over the world, including places like the Netherlands, Spain, China, Italy, Australia, India, the UK. So again, it is that big project. So from on my side, as a field technician, myself and my team, recently we finished building 1,000 antennas, which were the first antennas required for the first instance of the telescope. So we've now got a working part of the telescope, which is really exciting. Yesterday, we finished another 1,000 antennas for the telescope, which finishes cluster S8. So that's six stations completed at S8. So lucky enough, we now get to move to S9 today, and I guess we'll start working on another 1,000 odd antennas for the next instance. So we keep ourselves pretty busy down here. It's a good time. As you can see, it's pretty sunny, even though it's only 7:45 in the morning. But no, it's a beautiful place to work.
It looks fantastic. So just give me a ballpark figure. How many telescopes will there be, or how many antennas will there be when it's finished?
130,000-ish.
So you've got 2,000 done and about 128,000 to go. That's
no big deal, no worries.
that's way to guarantee work. That's good. Well done. Karen, can you tell us about, so I think George mentioned earlier, and in fact I mentioned earlier as well, that the project has sustainability as a really important part of how it operates. Can you tell us about how you're incorporating environmentally sustainable practices in the process?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. And yes, absolutely. The telescope itself is designed to have the minimum impact on the landscape. The observatory is around 3,500 square kilometres, and the SKA Low telescope will only take up a very small percentage of that land, less than 0.2%. During construction, we have several initiatives that will minimise our impact on the local environment. We're building nature bridges for animals and also doing the careful planning of the infrastructure to avoid creating flood or drought zones that might have lasting impact on the flora and fauna. The construction team and the site environmental advisor are also surveying for vulnerable animal and plant species, including the western spiny-tailed skink. When it is built, the telescope will predominantly be powered by renewable energy. As the most positive impact we can have is to reduce our power requirements, significant efforts were made during the design phase to focus on sustainability. The expected power needs of the telescope are now halved compared to the original estimates. The site will also be rehabilitated back to its natural state after it has been decommissioned.
Splendid. Thank you very much. Look, I feel guilty. You should be working, so you can go back. That's okay. But one more question for George, though, if he's still there, unless he's run away.
I'm still here, Chris.
This is a big one, and I think it's probably the one that is, in a lot of people's minds in the room with me right now, and that is, how far away are we from seeing science results?
Yeah, that's a big question for me too. So this is a software telescope. You can probably see from these antennas around me that they're not prone to moving, at least not on purpose. We don't point the telescope in a traditional way by actually moving the antennas. What we do instead is we use that computer technology that I mentioned before in order to virtually point the telescope through the computer systems. And what that does for us is it makes a very flexible telescope. But because of the same sort of nature of building up the radio telescope, it also makes for a very modular design. So to operate a telescope comprising 130,000 individual antennas over about 50 years, and it's a very large project, complex project, providing a huge amount of data. As you mentioned, Chris, it's a huge amount of data that will come out of the telescope. But in addition to flexibility, the great thing about this telescope design is that it's very modular as well. And it means that we can start off understanding the telescope with just a very small deployment in order to really get our heads around the way that the system works and the way that we can use it to deliver science results. So what we're working on now is a first deployment, which we call AA 0.5, which is made from 4 stations. That's around 1,000 antennas total. And that system AA 0.5 is being used for early understanding of the system. So what we've done so far is we've used a single station to make all sky images of the sky. And we've also used 2 stations together to detect what we call a fringe, which is basically the thing that means that we've got the telescope all synchronized correctly, that all of the data are flowing through the signal paths the way that we expect, and that we have, in fact, a functional interferometer, a functional radio telescope. So what we're doing now is taking the next step beyond detecting that fringe. We'll soon be prepared to form a first image using the 4 stations of AA 0.5 together. That'll be a pretty basic image with just 4 stations, but it is really essential work to make sure that we understand that the way that the telescope is operating and providing potential for science outcomes. So we'll be continuing to work over the coming years. In about 2 years' time, we expect to reach the phase of the project where we'll reach parity with the current largest radio telescope at these frequencies. And that'll be, at that point, we'll only have deployed about 1/8 of the total telescope. So from that point, we'll really be progressing into a phase where we're building continually what is already the world's largest radio telescope at these frequencies. Preparing ourselves to make really unexpected discoveries by the expected completion date in 2030. So along with that, there's also parallel activity taking place in tandem in South Africa with the SK Mid telescope. And so by building these 2 world-leading radio telescopes together, the SK Observatory is really preparing to make a lot of scientists and astronomers very happy.
Yeah, some of whom are in the room with me now, going by the noises they're making. Look, George, thank you so much for a sneak peek. It's great. It is really cool to be able to do this live. It's not a thing that would have been a thing, let's face it, 10 years ago. Not with this level of quality. By the way, you look very snappy. So thank you so much for giving us a sneak peek. And please give it up for George Hilton, Emily Goddard, and Karen Faulkner. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, I want to go. And you can, sort of. If you are interested in SKA stuff, and let's face it, if you're breathing, you're interested. If you're breathing in this room, you're interested. The SKA are offering guests and delegates at this conference an immersive experience in a VR room, which I'll explain the location of later on, but essentially it's kind of next to where you registered. If you went around to your right from there, you'd find it. There's a mark on the door. It's quite easy to find, but it's really cool. 25 minutes, 360 degree, totally immersive. You put the headset on, all that kind of thing, and you get to experience what it's like to be in a very, very large radio quiet place with some very, very cool tech going on around you. So yes, I recommend that too, but I'll give you some more details about that later on. Now, as you heard earlier from Mark, this is the 7th ICRI conference, the previous being in Brno in 2022, and even though we're already here, the time has come to basically hand over the baton. To do that, I need to bring two people here, somebody from there and somebody from here, to do the handing of a baton or something. I'm not sure it's actually a baton, but only time will tell. Will you please welcome to the stage Andre Hradil and Alex Cook.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know who's speaking first.
You are.
Is it me? Okay. Okay, then I will do. I will wait for some slides to come over because I prepared. The first slide, I think, shows the similarity between Brno and Brisbane. This is not a precondition for the ICRI conferences because, as you have heard, Vienna and other places, so it does not have to start with BNR. But I would like to take you back 2 years in time to Brno, which is the second biggest city in the Czech Republic, which is in the middle of Europe. No sea, not much sun as here, not that hot as here, especially in winter. It started to snow last week, and there are nice 30 to 60 centimeters of snow in the mountains. And there are two things that maybe you remember from Brno, because it's a city of science. So the first one is that Johann Gregor Mendel, the founder of genetics, did his experiments in Brno. So those of you in biology, genetics, that's a place to go. And you can visit a university museum with Mendel's work and the Mendel's Abbey. Second thing is very much connected to research infrastructures and business, because Brno is the city of electron microscopy. We are having 3 big companies, local and international ones, producing about a third of electron microscopes that are produced in the world, including R&D operations. So if you have heard the Indian and Australian minister visiting the Australian nanofabrication facility, I would guess that there might be some Brno microscopes there as well. So those are the 2 takeaway messages from Brno. But that's not all. Well, it was a long flight here. It was not that easy, as it goes on the slide. And I was thinking about what to tell you, because let's say, what's the legacy of these conferences? Of course, you have new colleagues, new friends, you discuss. But what's the long-lasting legacy? Because we speak about international collaboration in different fields of science. We speak about, the problems, difficulties that we are facing. We just heard the data issue. And one of the legacies from Brno is something which is called the Brno Declaration on International Cooperation in Research Infrastructures. It was presented at the end of the last ICRI in Brno, and it was formally endorsed by all the EU member states plus the European Commission. So that's the formal thing, because it's not so easy to have a sort of formal approval from all the countries, like we are not United Nations. It would be a bit difficult. And the declaration suggests 12 areas of actions for basically all the stakeholders in the research infrastructures field, being the governments, the funders, but also the research infrastructure operators. And it's widely accepted, and I thought it's good to just remember what we sort of put forward and what was delivered on. Coming from university, I come from the Maastricht University, which is, well, Brno is second largest city. Maastricht University is the second largest university in the country, hosting 50 nationally funded research infrastructures and being part of 12 European so-called ESRI infrastructures. So I tend to be sometimes politically not very correct, coming from the academic sphere. So I basically exchanged a couple of emails with some friends and colleagues from OECD, from the US, from the National Science Foundation, and from the Commission, who is paying the show. And so these are some, bits and pieces these stakeholders have been doing since the ICRI in Brno, following the call for action. And this is definitely not exhaustive. This is definitely not a politically correct selection of the countries, but take it as a snapshot what happened in the last 2 years. And I hope that in the next 2 years, before the next ICRI, there's much more happening in this research infrastructure field in general, but particularly in the international collaboration. One of the topics which were hot in Brno was greening of research infrastructures. So in the US, folks are doing quite a lot of work in that direction. They are also establishing new facilities. Actually, I have no idea what they serve for, but they might explain us, and they have nice names like Next Generation Very Large Array, so square kilometer array, so something similar, I would guess, from the keywords, but I'm not sure. And yes, there was a big discussion in Brno also about not just the big guys, the super mega projects in science, but also mid-scale facilities, which are also the backbone of the system. They are not so big, but because there's a lot of them across the system, across the country, in universities, research institutes, they are important in training and moving the scientists to these mega science facilities. So the US is doing some interesting work there as well. So moving over to the other continents, well, my home region of Europe and Czech Republic, these are actions that are done by the ESRI, which stands for the European Strategy Forum on Research Infrastructures, and the European Commission. Well, the ESRI started only recently, basically 8th of October. There was an info day and announcement of the launch of the new ESRI roadmap, which will be out in 2026, prioritizing new research infrastructures in Europe. So we are expecting some proposals, but given the budget situation, let's see who will fund them. And also, it's time in Europe where the new leadership is taking place. We are now 3rd of December, so it's the 3rd day of the new European Commission, which is the European executive, who is taking decisions, implementing what the member states agreed on. So there are high expectations also from the research infrastructure community. What's coming up? Is it going to be put more emphasis on research infrastructures? Hopefully more emphasis, more money, and Michael hopefully is working in that direction together with other people. Also, the Commission just recently, I think it was last week, published an updated charter for access to research infrastructures. It's about 9 years since the initial version of this charter was made public. So it's an interesting document to look at if you are into the research infrastructure business. And I will move over to more global scale with OECD, which is a bunch of countries from across the world. They are doing some interesting work on research ecosystems, which is ongoing, and also interesting work on research security. yesterday there was a very interesting side event to ICRI with closed bunch of people from across the world discussing what it is, how different countries are doing. Let's say, are we on the right track in terms of, let's say, not overkilling the topic by banning all the academic collaborations internationally, but, you know, putting some attention of the researchers on this topic so that it's in a meaningful way dealt with. And I think by this I will start. I will stop with the sort of tour the world. And this is the Czech delegation of ICRI. Actually, there's 8 of us, 6 coming from Brno. So you can see we are second biggest city in the Czech Republic, but we are important in terms of research infrastructures. And I would like to invite colleagues to come on stage and also ask Alex to help me out. This is the picture of ICRI in Brno with the with Australian delegation getting the big gingerbread as a baton. So it's not a baton, it's a big gingerbread. And I brought another one. It's not the same as 2 years ago. So that's the official time that ICRI 2024 is welcome to Australia. Maybe we can come over here.
Watch that chair.
Yeah. To take some pictures. And this is the Czech colleagues. Now it's up to you, Alex.
Well, I have to say thank you, Andrzej, for your generosity, both in handing over your gift and handing over the baton for Australia to host ICRI in 2024. You and Maastricht University have been incredibly helpful and generous as we've shaped up the agenda for ICRI. We've been working on this since March of this year, and particularly with colleagues from your university and from members of the International Program Committee. It's been an excellent pleasure, and I really hope that you'll see the agenda over the next few days reflecting some of the views and the thematics that we've spoken about since March. You spoke about the legacy of Brno, and we are hopeful that we'll continue the handover of that legacy to our successors for the next 2 years. We're hoping that we consolidate the themes from the next few days into what we will call the Brisbane Statement. It will not be a declaration, and some of those of you who are familiar with the rules of international policy making, we steer away from declarations, and it will be a statement that's issued from the chairs, myself and Michael Arentoft from the European Commission. So I really hope that over the next few days you get to listen to some of the views and see those thoughts consolidated into that final statement. I just want to finish up by thanking particularly the event team, and they're the ones with the orange t-shirts who are standing around here. Please take the time to ask them for help, but also to say a sincere thank you for all of the work that they've put together over the last little while and for the next few days. So thank you everyone, and really looking forward to the next few days.
It's enormous. People in orange t-shirts should also be aware you may be required to nibble on this. Oh no, you won't be required to nibble on it. It's all Alex's. Okay, that's fine. Before we move on, we have a number of sponsors without whom this would not be possible. This kind of thing doesn't happen without people giving you some backing. And we're hoping over the next few days you'll have a chance to learn a bit more about them, to help you with that, to kick that off for you. We have a couple of videos to present from Amazon Web Services and the Queensland Government.
version of a custom-designed chip. 30% better performance, 60% less energy to process.
Queensland is known for its strong collaborative research sector, supported by cutting-edge infrastructure. We have more than 300 research centres, institutes, facilities, hospitals and innovation precincts. Targeted Queensland Government investment over many years has supported the development of this infrastructure. We also have a long history of investing in the future of our brightest minds and assisting startups. Our support since 2019 includes over $41 million through the Research Infrastructure Co-Investment Fund for leading-edge national facilities. These provide the foundation for Queensland to address global challenges, including improving the health of our communities and environments, the quality and quantity of food, and providing abundant clean energy. Our scientists are international leaders making a real-world impact. The Team Queensland approach, bringing universities and industry partners together, delivers research outcomes and accelerates the commercialisation of ideas. Queensland is also at the forefront of quantum research. Through the Quantum and Advanced Technology Strategy, the Queensland Government has invested more than $28 million into 6 facilities supporting research, fabrication and commercialisation of novel technologies. Our quantum expertise is driving practical applications across diverse industries, including decarbonisation, materials science, sport and medicine. With our cutting-edge facilities and highly skilled workforce, Queensland is well positioned to grow new industries, capitalise on emerging opportunities and unlock solutions.
Now give him a clap. Thank you to Amazon Web Services and Queensland Government, our platinum sponsors.